Hello and welcome to ET BFSI CXO Conclave and welcome to this fireside chat on building resilience and crafting digital at PSU Banks. And I have with me Sunil Soni from Punjab National Bank. Soni sir, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Amma. Thank you so much.
So, Mr. Soni, to start with, I have a couple of important questions for you. There is always a saying that PNB or most of the PSU banks are traditional banks, and they're not very aggressive in digitalization. But I have seen a lot of PSU banks have also gone far in adopting digital technologies. So, I would like you to tell us, what is the technology roadmap at Punjab National Bank in the current future?
It is very aptly said that digitization is the next wave.
Right.
And unless this wave is encashed upon, survival or maybe sustaining the existing may be a difficult proposition. Essentially, all banks put together in general and maybe PNB in specific, we've also felt that unless the technology is married with the digital, until then the facilitations that we normally provide to the customers may be up to a specific level, but may not gel with the current wave of or the Gen Y. Now, what happens is that essentially, looking into today's scenario, which has been a forced scenario on us, and also looking into the kind of adoption, today's population, which is the millennial population, I may call it, essentially would not like to come to the banks. They would like to do banking as per their comfort. So unless you map up with them and unless you are able to fulfill their requirements and needs, it is going to be a difficult proposition for you to survive. So that's the given premise on which we work. Now, having done that, now is the time to look at how do we want to extend it. Now, while you would like to extend it, essentially what is required is that the technology should become an enabler for them,
right,
to take it forward, right? It is apt to say that today the banks, the PSU banks specifically, have almost everything possibly that is required, except for the fact that it has to be do-it-yourself kind of a scenario.
right.
Now, while you're looking at do-it-yourself, you have to digitize yourself. You have to see that your processes go for a change. Your technology adoption also facilitates the change in procedures and change in the business plan that you have. And besides, the publication of all these things also becomes very necessary. Having said this, essentially looking at what the PNB is doing is that we are trying to, we evolved ourselves onto the business model and the business that is expected to be handled in the next couple of years.
Right.
That's the short-term view of the bank. In the medium term also, we evolved onto our business processes that are expected. Having done that, we are in the process of rationalizing our processes today, and also automating a straight-through process in most of our activities, whether it is facilitating your account opening, whether it is facilitating your loan management, whether it is facilitating your online loan account opening process, or whether it is sanctioning the loans on the fly. So all these activities are happening as of today, and the matching technology also is getting implemented correspondingly. Second thing which is required for this particular thing would be the adoption in the shape of the cloud. Now, what happens is that, looking into the activities and actions that we are expected to, given the premise that we are PSUs, procuring becomes a major most challenge. And expansion with regard to digitization is going to be humongous and huge. And it also is a time-consuming process looking into the given premises for the PSUs. So to say, we've looked into the deployments now, and we are moving on to a cloud. So organization has made a policy with regard to cloud. Organization has also made a directional approach with regard to adoption of cloud. The contestation was public versus private. And looking into the kind of data issues and other challenges, bank has actually decided to go for a private cloud.
I think Very well said, Mr. Soni. And in fact, you highlighted many parts of the digitalization that PNB is doing and also the PSU banks are looking at. But my important question specifically to PSU banks, and since I'm talking to you regarding the PNB is, you know, for the fintechs or new age companies, it's very different. But for PSU banks, it's a bit difficult because of the size and the reach that you have. So considering the size and the reach that are the major challenges for the PSU banks and specifically for PNB, you know, while adopting digital and executive, could you just highlight some challenges that you face?
No, Amol, I would not like to mention them as challenge, but I would like to mention them as an opportunity.
Okay.
Now, looking into the banking, if you look at the conventional banking, it has been traditionally with one-on-one connect with the customers and the borrowers.
Right.
Secondly, since you have also said with regard to the longevity of relationships that PSUs or the banks have had with the customers, keeping in view the longevity or the life of the business entities that we are. So about 100 plus years, and we are still having lots of relationships which are surviving. So that being the case, essentially what happens is that we have a spectrum of customers of varied age. Now, some customers, when I say the millennials would be happy to get onboarded to the digital way of banking, whereas the old persons like you and me would still require the physical kind of connect with the branches.
Right.
So PSUs can't afford to simply say that they are either side, they are on either side of the business. They'll have to be at both sides of business. So I would like to say that essentially looking into the length and breadth of the organization, also looking into the type of customers or their profiles that we have, and also looking into the way the business is being done so far. Phygital is the next wave for the PSUs. We can't just afford to be only digital. We'll have to be physically available. Besides, we also will have to be digitally available to various different spectrum of customers. So maybe that could be my take on your question.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Soni, for your take. And you also partly mentioned about the automation some time back. The cloud and all. Those are hardcore technologies which everybody's adopting. But the hardcore business of banking, absolutely, when it comes to raising deposits and disbursing loans, credit. How are you trying to use digital over there? Because I have been seeing a lot of banks are trying to automate their loan processes. How are you thinking in that direction?
Now, while you're looking at all these elements, while you said the direction that we are trying to do, analytics is one way which will help you to go through the path of one, identifying, two, identifying as to who to pitch in, and three, the analytics would also let you know where to not tread. So analytics today is the mantra. At the back of whatever you're trying to do, you'll have to analyze as to what you're trying to do.
Right.
Having said this, it also means that I would need to have lots of inputs with regard to the profile of the existing customer, the profile of the going to be onboarded customer, and also the fintechs who are going to be marrying with the kind of or the way the banks are doing business. Essentially, if you rightly pointed out that if it had been a new bank, things would have been much different. However, looking into the current way of the current profile of the bank, we'll have to onboard the digital companies or the fintechs to enable us or to help us in enabling our kind of processes. So put together seamlessly, one is that the existing process which is refined. Second is the way or the category of customers that you like to pitch in. Third is with regard to facilitations through the fintechs, which are quick, fast, and are able to deliver on the fly. And fourth is making use of the analytics. So put together, this will help the bank to evolve onto the strategy of digitization.
But is there a challenge in terms of, again, I know that you converted challenge into opportunity, but since most of the PSU banks now are partnering with the fintechs, new age companies, tech companies, and trying to collaborate with them, integration is not that easy. Not only because of, the old employees, the different mentalities, different cultural issues, but number of branches and the number of employees and the number of customers. So is collaboration, does collaboration takes time?
See, collaboration happens at the corporate level. Collaboration enables you to facilitate
Right.
the front end. And while you're looking at front end, and you made a mention of saying that lots of manpower and the enablement or the facilitation centers that we have in the shape of branches, these are a front end mechanism or front end centers from where the business can be further percolated. That's why I said in the beginning that it is an opportunity rather than being a disabling factor.
But do you also feel that adopting technology somewhere may take some time at PSU banks compared to private banks? Building resilience still takes some time at PSU banks compared to private banks.
While you're saying resilience, running business is the basic for earning the bread and butter for the organization, right? And the banks are running business today. It is not that this is something new for us. Second aspect is that while you're looking at the resilience, talking with regard to adoption, adoption is a two count. One is the count of the people within the organization. I generally term them as internal customers, and also with regard to the external customers, which are my customers actually.
Right.
So essentially, the adoption happens at two different levels. While I demarcated the kind of customers into millennials and others, the older ones, similarly, I have also demarcated my manpower or task force, which is available with me, in two brackets. Those who are capable enough to handle the branches and those who are capable enough to get onboarded digitally. So that's the demarcation that we are looking into, and we are not simply saying that we are kind of hive off, saying that the branches would be shut, the brick and mortar branches may not be there. That's not the case like.
Right.
So it's the marrying of both, which is going to help the PSUs to further propagate the existing strength. And while you said resilience of infra, I think we've been doing business for quite a number of years through technology.
Right.
Newness is nothing but a straight-through process, and that should not be a cause of concern to us.
Right. So, when I speak to other banks and also the fintech companies and also the tech companies, the new area is that everybody's focusing on emerging technologies, augmented reality, how aggressively you use data and analytics. And what I have been also significantly, seeing is this, that most of the banks are now looking at BaaS, banking as a service model. Considering all this, where do you want to take PNB next? What kind of technologies do you want to adopt? What kind of digital strategy do you want to craft for next 1 to 2 years?
You see, having what you said while you mentioned BaaS as the technique, the bank is also looking at an API-based enablement today.
Yes.
Now, what is happening is that so far the technology and the enablement has been coupled and tightly coupled, I would say.
Right.
So now what we're trying to do is decouple it suitably so that we can extend it or hive it off as per our requirements, and then gel them into one single piece so that use and a reuse can be enabled. So that's the viewpoint, and that's where we are heading to.
But any particular area where you want to absolutely automate in terms of credit, for example, small loans, SME loans?
No, bank is already in the process, and some bit of advancement is already there in place with regard to enabling the loans. And what we're trying to do is enable the loans up to about 10 lakhs as of today, and can be increased while the maturity is arrived at.
Okay. And one more question on the partnerships, because partnership is the new area. That's what we partly discussed also. What kind of partnerships do you have with the fintechs, or the startups or the e-commerce companies? Will it be fee-based, because most of the fintechs now are generating lead for the banks? Also, the NBFCs are allowed to partner with banks now. So what kind of partnership models you are looking at going ahead in terms of digitalization and everything?
Well, there are different partnerships that are existing even today in the organization. While I say existing, it would mean that one, with regard to facilitating or enabling the process of extending the loans to the customers. Second is with regard to having a partnership with a fintech company where they provide you with the kind of application software as per your requirements.
Right.
Third is, a business model where you get into a fee-based kind of an adoption, where you get into sanctioning loans, where partners also take uh, some bit of load with regard to recovery, and also the dent in case if the NPA happens.
Hmm.
So that's the kind of business model, different business models at different levels that are currently there prevailing in the organization.
Sounds good to me. Before I wrap up, or before I let you go, if you want to add one more comment on the automation, like where do you see PNB in next 1 year or 2 year? What do you think specifically? Like, will it go more on, attracting customers through mobile banking, net banking? What is that one or two thing that you would like to, aggressively implement at PNB?
PNB would get into uh, in a direction, on the mobile platform, and also into an API segment. So
Okay.
two good things that are going to happen in a couple of years from here are these two great achievements for the bank.
So, Mr. Soni, I will have one more question, which is about the merger. And everyone said initially that the merger will not happen in 1 year because there are a lot of technical challenges. There are major issues because each bank had a different version of the software. Uh, we have learned that the PNB has almost completed its merger with other banks. So, could you just tell me what is the status right now? Whether you actually merged those banks and it's operational already?
No, obviously, I mean, while we started, a lot of skepticism was there in the market, saying that whether banks would be able to, because of two previous experiences which did not really go well,
Right.
uh, obviously with other banks. Now, what has happened over a period of time is that we've kind of learned from the mistakes of others. One, and secondly, the PNB has been in the forefront with regard to the technology, and also that the in-house facilitations are too good. People are very, very, really enamored with the kind of such challenges. So I am happy to announce that we've been able to migrate one bank in one shot, which is erstwhile Oriental Bank of Commerce, on this 28th and 29th of November. And today, looking at what we have done, I have the pleasure also in announcing that we are stable and we are functional, and all the facilities have been extended to the customers of EOBC.
Okay, great, Mr. Soni. Thank you so much for sharing your insights at ET BFSI CXO Conclave and talking about PNB Bank. Thank you so much, Mr. Soni, for your participation.
Thanks, Amol. Thanks for allowing me or giving me an opportunity here, to have one-on-one discussion with you. I have enjoyed it. Thanks a ton.
Thank you.